Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we are going to be going over a tradition on this channel. Normally, I do a recommendation video for builds for the patch, but sadly, due to just how this patch is wrapping up, I don't really have that many recommendations this time around because guess what? Everyone's going to be playing Runemaster, so I'd recommend you to play the new mastery, Runemaster, so that we can get some, data on it, so we can, of course, get it balanced by 1.0. But if you do want a build that isn't Runemaster, if you're just coming in to play LE and Runemaster is not your stick, I'll be leaving two videos in the description. One video where I talk about my recommendations for what you should play. This video, the 0.9 video, it is not outdated in the slightest due to the fact that there hasn't been that many changes. And of course, the other video I want to talk about is the top 5 builds from other people that I trust. That video is the one I made last patch, and that one is still valid as well. So those are even some more builds for you to look at. But this video, I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about my favorite build so far in last Epoch, at least in the recent few, year or so. So we're just going to talk about builds that I enjoy. I know a lot of people are like, oh, this build's the best, but you got to remember, we play video games for fun. So let's talk about all the fun moments I've had over the year, shall we? So the first build we're going to be talking about is Bleed Lethal Mirage. This build was spawned out of the cooldown recovery buffs that we got. So Lethal Mirage now is a playable skill without the 2 Fulgurite daggers. As you can tell on the screen, that's the other build that I played with the Fulgurite daggers. That was before the buffs. And now we can kind of just play Lethal Mirage as just Lethal Mirage. And it's very enjoyable. Being able to play Bleed Lethal Mirage has been a very enjoyable experience, and that is because of the node inside shift. There are a few nodes inside shift that benefit your next attack, give it a lot of bleed effect or bleed penetration and duration, and this will apply to the entire next attack, including every single little hit you see with the Lethal Mirage. So we're applying all those bleeds, they're getting insane amount of duration. This works very similarly to the bleed Hail of Arrows setup that I played a few patches ago, except instead of Hail of Arrows, we're playing with Lethal Mirage. Lethal Mirage has a lot of cool things going for it. First things off, it's an iframe, so if you want to stay, not dead, you can use it to dodge things, which is cool. You also get the ability of abusing puncture and all of the free perfection stacks, so it's a lot of free armor and dodge that you normally wouldn't have access to, which is great. And overall, the build has been wonderful. Thanks to the fact of the specific helmet, the set helmet, we can get a large amount of AoE on our, of course, our Lethal Mirage's AoE attacks. So whenever we hit a pack, we hit almost the entire pack with every single individual attack, which is very good as it makes our clear speed much better than it normally would be, as we hit, of course, the whole pack instead of just one enemy. And a lot of the cool things about this build is, one is the scaling. A lot of the items that we end up using are really cool. It's a lot of different scaling than what you're used to. You get to utilize dual swords, which means you get to abuse dodge percentage suffixes on said swords, which means that you can get a lot of free dodge, which means that, you're not taking as many hits as other builds would be. And of course, that on top of all your armor scaling means that you won't really die too much to hits. Sadly, due to the fact that you are playing a Blade Dancer and you don't have much access to damage over time reduction, as you can tell in the corner there, I have like 1,900 HP, and if any damage over time hits me like poison or Jurla beams or whatever, it is a death sentence, and that is just mainly just how it is. I don't believe that this is with apostate. I'd have to go check. Hopefully it's not with apostate. So let's talk about the next build, shall we? The next build I want to talk about is, of course, Hands of Judgment Paladin, 1 Punch Paladin. So as you can tell, this is a 200 Corruption Orbis, and we one-tap him. It's absolutely beautiful. I love this build. I've been using it to farm my tier 4 Jurlas in the last patch, and it is an absolute joy. So if you don't know what's going on, we're utilizing the new unique Hands of Judgment, which gives us a lot of melee flat for Judgment per attunement that we scale. This is great as it allows us to get a lot more melee flat than we normally could on a build like this, but it does make it so that we cannot use a weapon. So there's a few problems with this. The biggest problem with this is, of course, you can't really get that much base crit without, of course, having a weapon. So we have to get base crit through other means. Thankfully, we have a few tools at our disposal. We have Shield Bash. Shield Bash gives your next fire melee attack 15% base crit, which is plenty for us to utilize, as this on top of the percent more crit you get from Judgment's Tree. This means that, of course, you can actually get to crit cap very easily with a little bit of effort, which is nice. And overall, the build's fun. If you like the Konami code kind of builds, where you press a bunch of buttons, do a lot of damage with one hit, it's very good for that. Now, I will say this build sucks in a lot of other situations. Having to wait every 4 seconds to do damage with your Shield Bash and your Volatile Reversal means that, of course, your clear is absolutely abysmal. So I would not use this to farm Monoliths. I would use this to farm T4 Jirla or something like that. So I would play a different Paladin build and then respec into this when you feel comfortable enough and have some fun with it. This is a for fun build. It's not really a serious build. I do have a different version planned in my head where it's a lot more spammy version. It's less waiting around, but it's more like consistency. So we'll see how that goes. But with all that being said, let's go into the next build, shall we? All right, the next build we're going to be talking about is, of course, Storm Totem Shaman. This build really did prove itself. I'm very happy with its performance, even though you can see the crows dying there. Sadly, due to just tier 4 Jirla, your minions will die no matter what you do if they're stuck in the beams. Yeah, so the concept of this build is to take a Storm Totem and juice it as much as possible. So we're doing a lot of different things to juice it. First things off, there is a node inside, of course, the Stormcrow tree that allows you to make them buff your totem, gives them a lot of flat damage, and it equals out to around like 200 flat lightning, which is a lot for a totem, as they start out with 20. So that's a lot of flat damage, of course, right? And then we also abuse things like Upheaval, which gives our Storm Totem a bunch of more damage as we're hitting it with Upheaval. As you can tell, that's why I'm hitting it with Upheaval. And all of that combined means that you can actually do enough single target damage with Storm Totem specifically to kill T4 Jirla. You also can push a decent amount of Corruption. This build ends up being really good at just spamming Monoliths because you can get a lot of movement speed outside of Storm Totem and being a Shaman. So all of that combined means that it's a very zoomy playstyle for just in general for Monoliths. I wouldn't take this to farm T4 Jirla. As you can tell, my life is very low, so you have to be very intelligent about your positioning in the T4 Jirla fight. It's definitely not an easy fight. I think the biggest problem is we're stuck with, of course, Shaman as a skill tree. If we weren't stuck with Shaman's skill tree, we could probably end up getting significantly more life or effective HP pool, but sadly, Shaman is just very bad right now. But Storm Totem is really good, so who knows, right? But yeah, Storm Totem's a really fun build. I really recommend it if you really want to play like a Storm Totem build in general or just a Shaman build. This is definitely one of the reasons to play Shaman if you want to play Shaman, is to abuse Storm Totem. So this next build we're going to be talking about is a very satisfying build. This is Blood Specter Necromancer. If you don't know, Blood Specters are a minion type that is summoned out of the Sacrifice skill tree. This has allowed us to essentially make an entire minion build around it. As you can tell, it's those red guys that are attacking Riot currently. And we mostly scale poison and ailments. This build got nerfed slightly thanks to the nerfs to poison. Specifically, minion poison is hurt by this specific thing. But overall, the build should still function. It should deal plenty of damage in the end game because guess what? Minions, they do a lot of damage. Who would have thought, right? Now, another thing that happened was right after that I made this video, their new patch came and they bricked the entire build because they made it so that Sacrifice no longer actually hits all of your minions. Thankfully, this was eventually fixed, and now you can play Blood Specters again, which I'm very happy with because I really do need to come back to this build and update it because I think it'll actually end up being a very good, strong SSF starter build, as most of its power comes from the Sacrifice tree. You don't have to actually invest too much into gear. Everything that you want is inside all your skills and not much on your gear. Your gear is mainly just to make sure your Blood Specters stay alive, of course, and they stay alive for long enough, but I believe there are ways of abusing it and getting your Blood Specters to essentially stay up forever per se, not forever, but for a much longer time than you see in this clip, and we can get way more minions because of that. I have ideas, plans to update this build in the future, so be looking forward to that. I have a lot of ideas, specifically the one where we utilize the minions poison damage leeches life for them. The spear, I can't remember its name exactly. It's this, I'll show it on screen, but it's the spear that makes it so your minions leech their poison as life, which means that you can keep your wraiths alive for a bit longer. But this build will also be in the description. I really enjoyed this build. It's like premier, like fun. I love this build. So the last build we're going to be talking about is, spoilers, another Necromancer build. It is because Pyro Golem is one of my favorite builds in the entire game. I barely got to play it during the last Epoch multiplayer invitational, which was in January. I played it for a very brief amount of time. I didn't really get to min-max it, but I'm very, very impressed with how it feels for mapping, specifically being able to pull your golem around and have it do a big aura. This is essentially the new Guardian node from Guardian from Path of Exile, but we got it a few days earlier, and this can actually scale into endgame thanks to the fact that, you know, you have enough damage scaling because it actually works. So overall, I really enjoy this build. Thanks to like the minion teleport stuff, you can kind of like drag your golem alongside, and with the new experimental affixes that exist as well, you can pull your golem around as well with that, which means you have two ways of pulling your golem around. And I think overall it's going to be a very enjoyable build to play again. I need to play it again, but as you can tell, it's just walking around in the aura degen. It's just one-shotting everything. Of course, we do need to invest more into this and probably find a way to scale its damage even farther than in this video. But I'll be honest, I was very stressed out during this time. In this, of course, invitational thing. So I didn't really have much time to min-max it, and I really hope to min-max it. Sadly, there currently is no planner set up for this build. I do need to eventually make a planner for it, but I really do think that this is very easily 300 corruption viable, and it's definitely one of the faster clear speeds on the Necromancer build. So look forward to this build when I eventually get to play it again. I really do enjoy this build, and I think it's going to be a zinger when we get around to it again. All right, that's going to be it for all the builds that I want to talk about today. I do want to take this time and to mention a few things, actually, because I feel like a lot of people need to hear this right now. So there's been a lot of talk around in the community about corruption pushing and is my build good? Pushing past 300 isn't worth it, all this, all that. So I want to talk about this real quick. So I'm going to be honest, guys, due to a lack of balancing on EHG's end, corruption pushing really isn't that rewarding right now. It's just a ticker that goes up. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with pushing for personal achievements, right? I completely agree with that. I think corruption pushing should stay a thing. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool idea. I think it should be in the game. It's just, if it's in the game, I think they should actually pay attention to it and actually work on it instead of just leaving it in the dust like they currently have been. I know that they have a lot of things to work on, but it's definitely one of the things that they should be working on, is making sure that the, you know, the pinnacle content in the game, i.e. corruption pushing in this case, is actually enjoyable and a fun time, which it currently is not, if you did not know. So I think that people need to hear, guess what? This game is a video game. People enjoy video games. You know what they do? They come home from work and they want to play said video game. If someone wants to mess around with a Reflect Paladin setup or Reflect Forge Guard and meme around and take 5 years on every single boss fight, but instantly delete spires or whatever, all power to them. They're completely allowed to play that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with playing worse builds than the meta, as Last Epoch does premiere a lot of skill diversity. If you stay around 300, 400 corruption, almost every build is viable. And that is currently the corruption that the devs are balancing around. They're not balancing around further, which means that to talk about builds after that in terms of viability is kind of just not really worth your time, as it's not really what the devs are talking about. And what they talk about is sadly the important part, because no matter what I say, no matter what you say, no matter what your favorite content creator says, no matter what your favorite Twitch streamer says, no matter whatever we say, the end goal, the end like be all is what EHG thinks and what EHG wants to do with their game. There's a lot of things that I have been very against recently that they've been introducing and stuff, But in the end, it is their product, it is their game. So all I can do is really accept what has been changed. And definitely, this corruption pushing thing is one of those things where I'm just accepting it. I'm just going to have fun with my video game, like you guys should. All that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Probably play Runemaster. Bye.